Yo, what's happening, guys? Welcome to another Assassin's Creed Shadows build video. Today we're gonna go with the Poison Kusarigama build, and I came up with this build because I was looking at some items in my inventory and noticing some really good synergy. And also, I had the sort of the foundation for this build I had from my previous build, which used a katana instead of a Kusarigama. But I did get a few new items, and so that got my gears turning. And then I noticed that there was the possibility to improve on that build and just make it similar and use some of the same items that I was using, but also improve it and create a slightly different gameplay loop that was also really fun, and as usual optimize for damage, because that's something that I enjoy with build crafting personally. But I also like to post builds that are really efficient for anybody that's tuning into my channel. So without further ado, let's go take a look at the build. The Tanto that we're going with is Yukimitsu's Revenge, because it has poison buildup, and the engraving that it comes with is one of my personal favorites. Afflicted enemies are vulnerable. With this, you can basically stun lock enemies if you're quick enough with your affliction buildup. And then we put on the engraving for the Call of the Void Tanto, which gives us 30% damage on tagged enemies. Then the Kusarigama is the Stone Heart. Again, it has poison buildup, and the engraving that it comes with is actually really powerful. It gives you the ability to spread poison affliction buildup with combo ender, which is actually only 3 or 4 hits into the combo. So you can spread the affliction quite often with this. The headgear that we're going with is the one that I was using previously for my other build for poison. It gives us the engraving that it came with, gives us 20% damage with afflictions, and then we put on the engraving that gives us 50% damage from poison on afflicted enemies. Then for the armor, we're going with the No Master Stroke costume. I do really like the fact that it comes with tool bleed buildup, because we still have this 20% damage with afflictions, which is good synergy with that, and then we're able to spread the affliction. So it gives us access to burst damage, where the build is for poison and it's damage over time. So I just really like that combination of elements in this build, and also my previous build. So with this, we put on the this is one of the newer items that I got access to recently. It gives us the ability to tag enemies on sight with Eagle Vision. Now this actually is quite efficient. As soon as you go into Eagle Vision, everybody that whose outline you see is going to be tagged, and that's great synergy with the Tanto and the Call of the Void engraving, which gives us that 30% damage on tagged enemies. So this is just a really fun gameplay loop that I feel like, between both of these items, there's obviously it's just excellent synergy. But let me tell you where that came from before I move forward. It comes from the Cerulean Guy's Kosode, which is a reward that you get for finishing the Legacy project. So this one I just finished actually today. And this is an engraving that I've been wanting to get my hands on for a while, and I finally got it. So yeah, it's actually quite useful for this build. It kind of completes the vision for it. And then for the trinket, we're going with this guy that comes with plus 10% to stats on equipped Tanto. And if you watch my tips and tricks video, you've noticed that I spoke a lot about the weapons DPS being a major factor on the damage output for your build. And this gives us that kind of a slighter edge on the ability to do damage when we're using the Tanto. This actually, the DPS that this Tanto comes with is exactly the same as the Kusarigama. It's 2078, and it brings us up to 2286 with this engraving. And I always put on the plus the Masakata's Vengeance engraving for that plus 1% damage per unspent mastery point, which we're currently at 202. I actually have to spend a couple of points that I earned recently. Alternatively, though, I do have some suggestions for you. You could put on Where is it? So you could put on something like this, which gives us 10% stats to the equipped Kusarigama, and again, the Masakata's Vengeance engraving on it. This one though, I usually tend to favor the Tanto, so that's just personal preference. If you're going to use the Kusarigama more, then this is actually worth your while. The reason that I was considering which one I was going to use, and the determining factor for me was the fact that the stats that it comes with are not as good as the ones that I have on this one with the 10% to stats unequipped Tanto. Because as you can see, this one gives us access to 31% vulnerable damage, and then the one that gives us 10% damage to stats unequipped Kusarigama has adrenaline gain, which is something that I really don't care for. My adrenaline gain is usually fine, and I end up using, I don't really use abilities that much, so it's kind of a waste for me. I would rather have the vulnerable damage and the critical damage, and also this one has critical chance, so I would rather have damage over chance usually. But yeah, that's just personal preference. If you have a trinket that comes with the same stats, and so health, critical damage, and vulnerable damage, I would go for that, obviously, because this is supposed to be a Kusarigama build. So, but it just so happens that because all the loot is randomized, it just so happens that my one for the Tanto is better. Or you could also go with something like this, which is also really fun. Where is it? I had it just now. There we go. So you could go with this guy that comes with 20% poison affliction duration. I was actually testing it for a while, and it does make a pretty big difference because of all the poison damage that we are stacking in this build. But for me personally, just because of the way that I go through enemies, it tends to be quite fast. I really enjoy just clearing groups of enemies as fast as I can. But if you're a little bit more methodical and your style is more, having a little bit more fun, taking your time with enemies, then this is actually perfect, because it does give you that damage over time increase, so that you can do more damage with all the poison that you're stacking with this build. So personal preference, like I said. But this one also, the thing that I don't like is that it also comes with adrenaline gain. So I feel like if it came with vulnerable damage, I would probably also run this. I would probably switch between both of them accordingly. But yeah, so that is my recommendation for trinkets. I also have recommendations for alternatives for the armor. So this one, the Mamushi snake robes, comes with tool poison buildup. And, if you're just wanting to stay with poison and you don't want to lean into bleed at all for whatever reason, the only drawback is that the engraving that it comes with is actually not that powerful. Dead bodies release a poison cloud when investigated, because it seems to damage their armor first, and it does very little damage to health. So, it just didn't really amount to much damage. And so, theoretically, it sounds like a really cool perk for the engraving, but it's actually not that strong, which is why I'm not going with that. But if you're wanting to play a little bit more stealth and you want to stay within sort of like the thematically just being more stealthy poison kind of build, then that could be a good fit for you. Or you could also do the Cerulean Guy's Kosude and then just put the no master stroke engraving on it. The only difference is that this will give you more damage with tools, but it won't give you tool affliction buildup. So that's up to you. I personally really like the no master stroke with the tool bleed buildup for that burst damage. And that is it, really. One more recommendation could be for the Kusarigama. If you go with the blood letter, you could trigger poison on entanglement, and that's a really good combo. Anything else I don't really recommend. But yeah, that's the build. Let's take a look at the skills that we're going with. From the katana skill tree, we're only going for global bonuses because we're not using a katana. So momentum builder, affliction effectiveness, and melee expert. From the Kusarigama skill tree, we're going with Affliction Builder, Multi-Target Expert. Actually, let's use those points here. And Critical Proficiency. And then I like Entanglement. You can, you know, choose an ability or whatever you want for this. I don't really use abilities that much, so I'd rather just have this. But if you have the points, obviously, you could spend them on that. From the Tanto skill tree, we're going with Gap Seeker and Critical Thinker. Backstabber is something that I just don't really use too much. Up to you if you want to use it. But this one is one of my essentials. Leap Strike, Escape Strike, and Blood Rush. Then Shadow Piercer. And from the Tools skill tree, we're going with Tool Professional for a little bit more damage with tools. And then the larger tool bag fully unlocked, so we can get as many, you know, so we can carry as many tools as we are able to. And then Tool Affliction Proficiency, of course, because we are using that for burst damage or damage over time if you're going with poison or bleed tool buildup. Then the Smoke, and this is personal preference, the Kunai Assassinations. I just have the points for it. And then this is actually something that I actually would strongly recommend that you unlock, the Shuriken all the way up to triple threat. So you can throw 3 Shuriken and only use 1. And then also the tier below that gives you the ability to have your Shuriken ricochet, you know, and bounce off of enemies. And then quick throw always for ease of use. From the Shinobi skill tree, we're going with lightning kicks for easy takedowns and ground attacks. And then Ascension Boost and Ninja Fall are just are 2 things that I always keep on. From the Assassin skill tree, we're going with Executioner, Nightcrawler, and Front Runner. And this is something that I turn on and off depending if I am engaging enemies at night. I'll turn it on. It gives you 12% damage at the cost of 6 points, so, you know, it makes up for itself. Then all the adrenaline chunks unlocked. Double Assassinations and Rush Assassinate is actually pretty good for the Kusarigama. Since we are using one, it's one of the better perks for the Kusarigama. And all this assassination damage and Hand of the Creed and all that, I have the points for, but this is not an assassination build, so up to you what you want to run. And that is it. That is all the skills and all the gear. So yeah, that's it for the build. I hope you guys like it. Let me know in comments what you think, or if you have any, you know, suggestions or ideas for new builds. And I will catch you guys on the next one.